Why did Jesus say the way to heaven is narrow and difficult? In paragraph 278, there's a lovely description of the innocence of wisdom. Swedenborg writes that these people are led by the Lord. They delight in what is good and what is true. They understand that willing and doing what is good and true is the very definition of loving the Lord and loving the neighbour. They are content with what they have. They recognise that the Lord alone knows what is good for them. They're not anxious about the future, and they never act from an evil motive, but always from what is good. And he writes that the same is true of everyone who is being regenerated. So this is not just about people in heaven. This can be about us, here and now. Now there are degrees of innocence, and from these degrees come the degrees of heaven. First of all, there's natural innocence. This is when we will not act in any evil way. Think about obedience to the laws of the land, the road rules, for example, but also displays of manners and courtesy towards others. Natural innocence is doing what is right and being seen to do what is right, although it goes beyond merely being seen. A person who displays natural innocence always does what is right, even if no one is looking. Now, none of this is a bad thing, but it is relatively external, limited to what can be observed, both by ourselves and by others. And so spiritual innocence exists on a whole other level. It's when we will not think anything bad of another person, and when we shudder to think of any evil act. This is to live by principles one holds as true. So, for example, Jesus' words on marriage. He said, "Whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." And then there's celestial innocence, and that exists on a whole other level again. It's when we love others. Love becomes the gold standard by which we measure everything: how we act, how we think, and what motivates us. When we work at this level, we don't need to think things through anymore. Love moves us to act and speak spontaneously. And there is no division in our being here. Love is what we think, and it becomes what we do and say. And really, this is the goal of all religion. That what has been divided, our motivation, our thought, and our actions, is united into one. Swedenborg wrote, "It is a goal of the divine that everything created be such a unity, as a whole and in every part. And if it is not, that it becomes so, a union of goodness and truth." So why did Jesus say it is difficult to enter heaven? Well, it's because he urges us to love, think, and act not from the circumstances we find ourselves in, but out of real goodness, springing from within, from our hearts and minds. For example, he said, "Love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you." And a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. And all who take the sword will perish by the sword. And we find that very difficult indeed. We tend to justify our actions based upon how other people have treated us. If someone is kind to us, we are kind in return. If someone hurts us or insults us, we return in kind. Or we suffer in silence and condemn them in our thoughts. Or we harbour a deep malice and mistrust towards them. As always, you're welcome to read along with us or read ahead if you prefer. You may have questions you'd like to pose in the comments below. Enjoy the journey.